Welcome to the Media Roundtable Special Edition, where we dive into the secrets of the craft of audio advertising and provide our perspective on industry topics in service of marketers responsible for the success of their audio program, the Chief Audio Officer. I'm your host, Giles Martin, EVP Strategy at Oxford Road, and today I'm joined by, and I'm just noticing this, two Miss Smiths. So, Aaliyah, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Aaliyah, and I'm the Associate Manager of Acquisition at Bull & Branch.
Thank you. And Megan?
Hi there. I'm Megan Smith. I'm our Director of Media Strategy at Tecovas.
And last but by no means least, a familiar face and voice, James Ingracia, EVP Client Service at Oxford Road.
Hello, happy to be here.
Welcome to the show, and thank you all so much for participating. We're excited about this episode as we're coming off a whirlwind couple of days at the third annual Chief Audio Officer Summit that was held at the beautiful Terranea Resort in Rancho Palos Verdes, Los Angeles, last week. Now, you may have heard at the summit, we try to center our event around each of our three core values: purpose, profit, and people. Now, purpose means making sure our brand values are aligned with our business objectives and the media environments and the type of media we want to support. Profit, obviously ensuring that our media investments deliver the best possible returns for our business. And people, that is networks, human relationships, building contacts with people all over the marketplace, including, importantly, other savvy marketers. So I'm going to hand over to James to just give us a little bit of an overview of how those three different aspects of our values fit into the event that we had last week.
Yeah, we like to divide our event into three different chunks, if you will. So when everyone gets together for the first time, that first evening, we have our welcome reception, which we'll talk about in a moment. That's focused on purpose. And so the purpose of our welcome reception this year was the power of independent podcasters. And we had some really great guests like Ben Shapiro and Stephen Bartlett from Diary of a CEO. The next day, we focus a lot on profit. So how can all of our CAOs in attendance use the tactics and the lessons learned during that day to help grow their business through profits that they can develop with the help of all of their fellow CEOs that they've learned from. And then that evening, we have a nice finale celebration, which is all about people. It's all about networking, getting together, and just celebrating the audio medium as a whole.
Thanks, James. So before we go through some of the key points of the summit, and we're going to sort of go through it fairly systematically, but pulling out some of the highlights that we found in the different sessions that we'd like to share with our listeners. I wanted to first ask a question to the group, well, really to Aaliyah and to Megan, which is, what were your expectations, going into the summit? What were you hoping to get out of it? And how did the experience align with that or surprise you? And you should probably also add whether this was your first time at a CAO summit or whether you'd been before. So let's start with Aaliyah.
So this was my first CAO summit, so I really wasn't sure what to expect since I hadn't been to one before, but I knew that a lot of brands were going to be there, so my main goal was really to talk to other brands and ambassadors and just really kind of learn like how they strategize with audio being an offline channel, with digital being such a huge impact on all of our marketing mixes. And I feel like I really got a lot out of it, way more than I expected. There were I thought it was going to be mostly like associates and managers, but being able to talk to like CEOs and owners and founders of companies was so helpful and was really, really insightful to really get all that information from that high up as well.
And Megan.
Awesome. Yeah. So it was my first time as well. Thank you for having me. I was super excited to be part of a panel, and I already knew I was going to be around some powerhouse brands and get a chance to learn from them. I knew there were some great vendors and partners and also just networking and chatting with our Oxford Road team. But I think what surprised me the most was just the feedback directly from some of the podcast hosts and talent that were there and just how compelling that was. I feel like they were very generous in sharing their learnings, how they have found success, and just how we can be successful together as partners. So I think that was just the most surprising element for me, was just how much I got out of the host feedback. Again, so much from all the other brands and vendors as well.
Well, that's great feedback on both fronts, actually. I think that we had one CAO who was unable to come and they were trying to switch in someone else in their organization. And it was quite a junior person, to your point, Aaliyah, and we sort of had to negotiate a conversation with them to say, look, this is really an opportunity to sort of meet and network with people who are certainly decision makers and all the way up to the top of their organizations. And it's great to see that as an appealing feature of the conference. And Megan, we're going to talk more, I hope, about some of that feedback from the talent. I mean, we really got it both on Wednesday night and in the panel on Thursday morning. I think perhaps you're alluding to the Thursday morning more. And I mean, it is so refreshing, isn't it, to sort of turn the tables in that way, where, as a brand or as an agency, we're always briefing the talent, always telling them what we think they should do. And we don't often take the time to stop and listen to their perspectives and how we could do things better on their end. We kicked off Wednesday night, as James alluded to, with the welcome reception. And I have to say, I don't know if we could have done it better. It was a stunningly beautiful evening. Really well done, James and Bianca and Haley and all the organizers. That was outstanding work. The sunset was spectacular, and we also had a spectacular panel, I felt. We had fireside chat with Stephen Bartlett of Diary of a CEO and Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire. It was really interesting for me to see sort of the similarities between them, but also the differences between them, because there are a lot of both. But I don't want to color your guys' feedback. I'm really keen to hear from our guests here today. So what were your key takeaways from those conversations, and how did you feel this discussion set the tone for the summit?
I think featuring the independent podcasters first was a great kickoff to the summit. Just a reminder that they have built their audiences from the ground up, and that is why they know their audiences so well, because they have started from zero in a lot of cases. They've built their entire brand, and podcasting is one feature of their brand that they've built. And so when they say they know what works best for their audiences, they really do, because they have done so much of that legwork. So it's really impressive how they've just pursued their own excellence in that. And just again, like the reminder of when they are invested in your products, and especially Stephen was expressing how invested he gets in the brands he loves, just how much better that will be a successful partnership. So just hearing their own stories was really refreshing.
Yeah, and to bounce off that, again, I totally agree with you, Megan. I thought it was so interesting how really like insightful they are about their audience, because again, they did build everything from the ground up, and they're so hands-on with everything that they're doing with the podcast, as well as other, like for Ben Shapiro, with other podcast hosts that are within his network as well. And then also like hearing from them how they're very selective in their brands that they represent, and they want to make sure that they like their product first before they actually promote it and that they actually use it. So I feel like that also provides a more authentic endorsement when these hosts are doing these ads for our brands as well. And I mean, I got lucky with Ben Shapiro shouting.
Please, can we have a moment of acknowledgement for Ben's acknowledgement?
I was very excited about that. It's us and Ben Shapiro have had a very long partnership, so very happy that he is as happy with our relationship as we are. So it's on both ends. So I'm glad that he loves our product, and we love that he loves our product as well. And his listeners also love our product as well. So
yeah, and I can add too, Giles, thanks for noting the sunset. That took a lot of negotiation to get that sunset.
Kudos to the media team.
I mean, the last 2 nights before that, it did not look like that. So I even had people online asking, where were we? Thinking we were in Maui or Hawaii somewhere. It was a beautiful night. And honestly, just to comment on behind the scenes, putting that together, it was really great because Ben and Stephen were just very collaborative. They were willing to be up on stage with each other. They were willing to talk with each other. We even had a moment where they might even interview each other, but we ended up on the format that we settled on here. But they were both really great. And it was, to me, really amazing just to hear their origin stories about how they built their networks and how they instill values in not only themselves and the brands they work with, but also their employees. And it sounds like those are really 2 great places for people to work and bring those values to life.
Yeah, what was interesting to me was a couple of things. first of all, you talked about, them knowing their audiences, and I seem to remember someone saying, and this might have been on the Thursday actually, but saying, "We know our audiences better than you know your audiences," to the marketers, and I thought that was maybe a bit cheeky, but probably actually true, because as marketers, you tend to rely on sort of segmentation and sort of mass sort of statistical analysis of consumer groups, and maybe you go to focus groups, or maybe you participate in research and you hear small snippets of feedback from customers, but these guys clearly are getting a lot of feedback from their audience. They're engaging deeply with their audience. There's obviously a lot of social interaction online, and so that was just perhaps it seems obvious, but it was something that really, really struck me when they put it that strongly. And the other thing that really struck me was how I alluded to this, I think, like Ben and Stephen were so similar and yet so different. Like Stephen taking that approach of we test everything. We're a machine. We are constantly figuring out how to get more engagement out of our show and also our ads, which I mean, we're aware of at Oxford Road, but don't know if the audience was really aware how much testing they do of their ad reads, which are baked in. Whereas Ben is completely different from that. He does not have that same culture of testing at all and takes a very different approach. But they both had that commonality of having that true passion for the products. Like they really are not BSing their audiences. Like when they get up there in front of the mic, they are really committed to the product. And I mean, I guess that's the secret of a really successful partnership. But it was just really great to see. And this endorsement of Ball & Branch really was fabulous. Before we move on to the next section, did you guys learn anything new about either of these guys, or did you feel it said anything about the current state of audio culture to see them both on the same stage together? Any final reflections there?
I think you could tell that they see things differently in the world, have some different values, points of view, but I really admired the respect they had for each other's craft and platform. That was very tangible. Was very interested in hearing about Steven's approach to just like ruthless testing towards success. But I think on Ben Shapiro's side, just how he expressed how important being informed and like fully educated as the voice that he is to his audience, how many books he reads a week, how much he likes to write and reflect. So he's not just this person spouting a point of view with nothing backed up. They both very much are well researched, so educated, curious about the world. So they share a lot from just like how they spoke about their own platforms as well.
Yeah, and then again with Steven, I thought it was just so interesting how Megan said, how heavily invested he actually is in a lot of these products. That's how much he endorses them. So I feel like that also gives that the added edge of this host really endorses the product, because not only does he like the product, he's also investing in it.
I think it was a great evening, and reading through some of the survey results that have been coming in, that seemed to have been one of the highlights.
Well, and thank you for mentioning that. I'm going to do a quick plug. If you were there, please complete your feedback survey. We can only get better if we have your feedback. Thank you so much. Let's talk about Thursday, which obviously was the heart of the summit. This takes us on to our second value, profit, which obviously the one on which the others depend. But Thursday was obviously our main event. It's the daytime conference. And it kicked off with our State of Audio keynote given by Dan Granger, our CEO. The session tackled some of the biggest issues facing our industry today, including the rise of video content on audio platforms and the urgent need for better measurement and clearer definitions across the board. Any key sort of takeaways or memorable moments or data points from Dan's keynote?
For me, one of the big takeaways was how undervalued that radio is, how much reach it has, and how many impressions you can get across radio, and how underspent a lot of companies invest into radio. I know the measurement issue is obviously one of the big deterrents of investing in radio, but seeing how much reach is there, it's kind of similar to, I guess, like linear TV. Just getting as many eyes and ears on the radio ads as possible to hear and to have that upper funnel recognition of your brand.
I just wanted to echo that. That was actually one of my favorite panels, and just seeing the data that so many other brands are still investing in radio in a big way, and seeing that as a huge growth panel for them. It's a more traditional media type, but that doesn't mean that it's a dinosaur by any means. It's still doing a lot of hard work. And at Tacovas, we use radio very much in our new store openings and very strategically to grow in certain markets. And we hear anecdotally so much about how people heard our ads on the radio. We see the foot traffic. So we've seen it be really effective. It's just really nice to see the validation that other brands are also seeing a success story there as well.
Yeah, I think for my entire career, well, it started off being TV is dead. And that conversation is still going on, I think. And yet, the TV still, tops the chart for reach and hours spent and everything else. And now, they're saying the same thing about radio. And yeah, I completely agree. I think it was really eye-opening to see that across the sort of decade of the Edison metrics, that reach has only gone down from 70% to 60%. And so still reaching an enormous amount of people, and really glad to hear that message, made it through, Aaliyah. We remind people of this at least once a year at the the CAO summit, but also more frequently. And sometimes it takes a high frequency for messages to get through. So it's a great one to take away, I think, for all brands. And of course, it's a buyer's market, which I think we also were trying to stress for brands as well. So a lot of opportunity there. James, you've got a lot of expertise in this area. Anything to add?
I think while the radio stats were definitely interesting to see on stage, I think the call to the market to work with all the big publishers who are publishing the video and a podcast was really interesting to see some of the reactions we had in the room. I know that we're working with some of the major players to figure out solutions. So, what's with terminology. So what is a play versus a download versus an impression versus a listen or whatever it is? If we can come to some standardization on even just definitions, I would call that a small win. But even more so, how can we get a standardization on measurement using video? So we have audio is great with pixels, video still not there. So I think Dan's call for the market to come together and work with these major companies to figure out a solution there, I think was very interesting and was a great first step towards that as he debuted that on stage.
Yeah, very important conversation that's going on there. And I don't know if you did it on purpose, but it leads very nicely into the next panel, which actually I presented. It wasn't a panel, it was a presentation that I did with Keith Friedenberg from MIDGE, Media Identity Graph, where we were presenting some, what we believe to be, and happy to stand corrected, but industry first use of passive monitoring panels to evaluate either an audio campaign or, in this case, bringing first ever measurement to a YouTube podcast campaign. We were quite excited about it. Couldn't really tell looking at the audience because of all the lights and everything. But Aaliyah and Megan, how did that land for you guys? Do you even remember it? Any takeaways? Glad to hear your thoughts on this one.
I think we are all in on the video expansion. That had not seen any data like that before. I think we would love to talk more on that front about participating and learning more on the measurement front from that perspective. We would love more clarity on tying together the video piece to the audio piece on podcasts. I think right now we're a little more comfortable than maybe some other brands of just being this is a great expansion of what we're doing already in audio. We can't fully wrap our heads around the exact measurement or attribution for this piece of it, but just adding that sight, sound, and motion, it was more a call to us to really maximize that piece of it. How do we make sure that we can partner with our host partners in a way where we visually show up in the best way we can in their shows alongside the script talking points? So it just led me to think through more how we can make sure we're maximizing now that people are listening and watching to podcasts in different ways.
And you guys both have products that are visually very beautiful and very presentable. And so it's interesting to hear you talk about that. And obviously it raises a whole bunch of different opportunities and questions for both brands.
Yeah, and then again, the product placement is so huge in video. Being able to really visualize the product, it's so hard to really explain how luxurious and how high quality a lot of our products are by just speaking to them. But being able to see them is really that added value. And then obviously it's very interesting again, all the measurements that you guys are digging into to really help us really figure out the lift that we're getting from these video podcasts, because obviously as we use pixel data, it's kind of hard to match apples to apples to a podcast as 100% audio only versus a 50-50 versus 100 video. So it's hard to kind of evaluate like the strength and the performance based on that, and with all the multiple different ways we measure performance by on like a show level.
I think it was very interesting to see the data presented for the first time, or at least the first step towards that, and hopefully we continue to be able to use that data to fuel growth on our client campaigns.
Yeah, and it's great to hear of your interest, guys, and anyone else listening. If you're interested in pursuing this further, we would love to collect more data, expand the data set, and continue learning as we sort of head into this new territory. So please don't hesitate to get in touch. Now, after those two initial presentations, we covered a lot of ground through the morning with our panel discussions. And I don't know if we will have time to cover each one of them individually. We talked about, podcast performance and squeezing the most out of it there. We talked about radio, which we touched on a bit. We had a panel on programmatic. And then we had a great conversation about with talent, with them giving their feedback to us. We've touched on that already. Perhaps we could start with that if there's more to say about it. And perhaps there isn't, but I just found it so refreshing to hear, the tables be turned and to get that feedback the other way. And again, that point about we know our audiences better than you know yours, and therefore let us talk to our audiences the way we think that they should be talked to. Any other feedback or response to that panel or any of the other panels?
Yeah, I think the panel with the hosts, as we had mentioned a lot, I really loved the feedback that Nick Vial had provided us, just really explaining like how he goes about like giving that elevator pitch, like when you're instead of giving you like basically like just like talking points, like giving them as if they were the employee. I think Steven actually had said this on the first night, that he wants to basically be trained as if he was a brand new employee to your brand and really learn about the product, about the history, about the background on everything that your brand is. That way he can more easily talk about it and answer questions if like some of the listeners actually reach out and ask about the endorsements. So I thought that was super interesting to like be able to like just think about it like that way, more so just teaching the hosts and rather than telling them exactly what to say, because then I feel like it kind of also makes their endorsement sound a little bit more scripted and less authentic and flowing nicely within the podcast ad. And then another thing that I thought was really interesting is again about I think it was Legacy Box that had talked about utilizing radio and how they really concentrate mostly on the conservative, but they did run both on liberal and on conservative, and they consistently see a strong growth continuously with conservative, whereas with liberal they saw kind of like it started off good but then kind of fell off. I also thought it was really interesting learning that they had tested into with their radio channel.
Yeah, it was really kind of a moment of self-reflection on the brand side with Nick and Ashley sharing their feedback. I was questioning whether our scripts like have that succinct like summary that gets across who we are as a brand, and we are partnering with them to give their like very natural reads and their commentary. And so providing the space, I would say we have not been too overly prescriptive in how we've presented our talking points, but I think there's plenty of room for us to give more space for the hosts and really hone in on exactly who we are as a brand, but giving them more space to share to their audience who they see us as and why they are endorsing this brand. So more room for their voice in addition to just getting across our key points.
Yeah, and I think too, just again behind the scenes, for the last 2 years, we were very, very heavy podcast focused with all of our on-stage content, and our feedback from our CAOs both years kind of said the podcast is great, but I'm also interested in streaming and radio and other aspects of the audio business. So that's how we built our content this year, is that we had one panel on podcast, and then as you saw, we had one with radio hosted by Kim Commando, who did a phenomenal job moderating that panel. We had a programmatic session, which was a great deep dive into Shopify's journey on how they dove into programmatic this year. And then we had the talent on stage. So I believe we addressed a lot of the asks from previous year's CAO summits, but it was nice to see a well-rounded content panel mix on the stage that morning.
Would you echo that it felt like a well-rounded morning session?
It did. And I will say I really enjoyed the programmatic panel as well. I know Shopify is very much a leader in that space and how they've been kind of spearheading and testing a lot. So just learning from them. And then I know we're going to talk more about the sessions later in the day, deep diving into that. But I do feel like it touched on a lot of very variable areas in the audio space that was very educational.
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, and then also Connor had he led a really interesting discussion as well, with a lot of different teams, so many different sizes and everything. And I thought it was really interesting as well how different each brand, you looked at video and looked at podcasts and how it's measured and how it's broken out in spend and budgeting and everything like that, and the hierarchy within their brand team as well.
All right, so let's move on to the afternoon sessions. We had a lovely lunch outdoors, and then we launched a brand new feature for the CAO Summit in the form of breakout sessions in the afternoon. In the past, we've had feedback that CAOs wanted to go deeper into specific topics and also learn more from each other. So we designed these breakout sessions with that feedback in mind. We had 5 sessions, and each CAO was able to attend 3 of them. So the topics were leveraging AI in creative, to programmatic best practices, how to get the most out of your audio tools and planning, research and planning tools, a session on international, and one that I hosted, which was based on a fun dating game theme. I hope you guys made it, called Attribution Matchmaker. So which sessions did you guys attend? Which was your favorite? Which did you get the most value out of? What would you like to share with our audience?
I attended the programmatic audio session, the matchmaker session with you, Giles, and also the AI and creative session. And I really loved all of them. I feel like they brought a lot of different insights. We have not dabbled yet in the programmatic audio world, so it was great to kind of think through how we can even start to approach this and get some ideas for testing, especially as we have some different products that have unique audience elements that we want to pursue more programmatically. We've been pretty hesitant on the AI side as far as creative goes. And we've been very sensitive to voiceovers, which is why we've been like less on the streaming audio side, more on the podcast side, or even station endorsement to get that authenticity versus more of sometimes a salesy type voice that doesn't fit our brand with some of the VOs. But just experiencing how you can really customize even tone and pacing of the read in there really changed my mind. I'm excited to dig into this more with our CMO and just like see if this is something we can test into, because it's been a pain point to not have kind of VO talent that we like in-house or partnered with. So it's a great option that we are excited to dig into.
Yeah, some of that tech is pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I had also attended the lovely matchmakers, which was hysterical. I loved it, very engaging. It was super interesting to hear from all the measurement partners on their capabilities and what we are able to do partnering with each one of them. Can't remember which measurement partner it was, but they're actually also doing a video analysis on YouTube, doing the measurement on that as well. So really interesting to hear about the learnings. I think they said they're announcing the learnings at Podcast Movement, but so really excited for that. And then I also attended the Yumi and ChatGPT with the AI creative. Again, we are also, like similar to Megan, very hesitant on using AI. We want that, and we have done streaming audio producer read ads. We're very picky on like how the tone is read and how the voice sounds. We want to make sure it sounds soft and peaceful because we're a bedding brand, but also like easy on the ears, but also like stands out in the space as well. So it's like very hard to pick a voice. But I was really interested about being able to like upload our scripts in there and being able to see the grading on there and to see what we can add and what we can do to improve the ads. I think that's really helpful for our creative team, just as an added value, or even like having them introducing our creative team to the platform of Autolytics and being able to utilize that as a way to kind of help them in creating our audio ads as well. And then I also attended the the research and tools, duct tape and duct tape and measurement. That was really interesting. I loved being able to get all the different tools and hearing from other brands on what they utilize. I feel I've already used like 2 or 3 of the tools in the last few days. So very, very useful. Even shared some with my team because I thought they would be really useful on different marketing channels. But very, really useful, and really love the diversity of all 3 of the breakouts.
Well, that's great to hear. It sounds like the afternoon breakout sessions are a bit of a hit this year. There's also the post-lunch slump, which, one has to attend to in any conference. And so breaking up the sessions into smaller groups and sort of making, allowing you to choose your own, I think hopefully helped to inject some focus and energy, into that afternoon, which it sounds like it was successful in doing. So that's great. James, perhaps we could hear the inside scoop on some of these panels. I know you've seen maybe some of the dress rehearsals or other aspects that you might like to share.
Yeah, it sounds like Aaliyah, you joined all the ones with our costumes, which was great that we had. Yeah, so
There was
but no,
candy at the international one.
and just so you know, just again behind the scenes, when everyone registered for the CAO summit, we asked which topics they'd love to dive deeper into, and so we didn't know what sessions we were going to have just a few months ago. But as the RSVPs rolled in, we had some clear front runners. And so we had our top 5, which Giles mentioned earlier. And we wanted to make sure that we were designing each one. So that way, sounds like it worked. You guys walked away with actionable tactics that you can take back to your teams and start implementing as soon as you landed or got back home if you drove. But when we were designing some of these, big shout out to Todd Elbrink on our strategy team. He's been working for the last 3 weeks to build that Audiolytics platform that you saw in the creative one, and the beta is going to be released very soon, so you guys can start getting your hands on that. But just in terms of all the team members who put together the panels, we want to make sure, or the breakout sessions, we want to make sure that A, they were informative, B, they were collaborative, to make sure that everyone in the room had a voice or can contribute maybe something we might have missed. Like, we're not saying that our research tool session had every single piece of research, so there were some additions that some people in the room may be using, and we want to learn more about them. I know in our international session, we had some best practices about how to work with international partners or about transcreation on creative. With our creative session, you just saw that from A to Z. That was a really exciting one that we were rolling out a brand new product. And our programmatic one would just help to answer a lot of the questions and try to build it in between a programmatic 101 and a programmatic 201. Or 102, however you want to look at it, but somewhere in between. So if you knew a little bit about programmatic, you learn something more. And if you knew nothing about it, you would walk away interested to take your first steps in there. So we had a lot of really great input from both internal folks and some of our fellow CAOs in building those. So glad that they worked. Sounds like they mission accomplished there. And then we look forward to adapting them for next year.
So lastly, let's focus on the final part of the event, which was people, the third of our core values, which was really an opportunity at the end of the summit to have a lovely evening outdoors again, and a small celebration, providing an opportunity to unwind and to network. So I'm curious how your guys' experience of the last evening was. Did you get to meet some interesting people? Did you get to have some interesting or valuable conversations? Please tell us about your final night.
For the final night, I can kick it off. I feel like the first night, it was kind of like talking to people that you already knew, and just like saying hi and like welcoming them, and like as the welcome dinner should be. But I felt like the second night, I really made an initiative more to talk to people outside of people I already knew, try to really grow my network as well as talk to people that were on panels, because a lot of them had a lot of interesting things to say, and I just wanted to expand that conversation, which was great. And then also just working with my reps from Oxford to help me get introduced to certain networks and other certain leaders in our industry to really just like expand our network and expand our growth and just hear more about other companies and other brands and how they're doing things. And I think it was such an interesting night, and being able to have that time that everyone's in that one area and there's only so many people there, which was really nice. It wasn't too overwhelming and you didn't have to really like dig through people to find people, but it was really easy to be able to network throughout the night.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, the setting was stunning. Cannot ask for better there. So we were very spoiled in that. But I do think throughout even just a short amount of time, we had these multiple touch points with other brands and partners. And so it felt a little bit like we had made new friends by this point, and it felt more comfortable to kind of have these conversations with vendors, other brands, other people on the agency side that we hadn't met yet. And so it really was very celebratory and felt very much like a comfortable environment with friends that we had learned a lot together over the last day or so. And so it definitely felt like we had bonded a little bit from going through the different programming.
Yeah, and I always feel like that last event is great, but then I always get a little sad because then it's over. It goes so quick
Yeah.
because we fill so much content in there, and it's a tough decision to make to balance. Like, do we want to give more free time throughout the day? Do we want to fit as much as we can in because we have so much to tell and so much to learn about? And this year we didn't have any content or programming at the finale party because sometimes people might just be a little overloaded by then. But I think we struck the right balance this year, and open to suggestions for next year on that end. But I feel like the finale party stuck the landing for the entire event.
Yes, we did have some interviews with talent last year in the party, and I think personally I preferred it a little more unstructured like this because it allows a bit more freedom for sort of networking and connections. Would you guys agree with that?
100%.
I valued the more free format. Yeah,
Yeah.
I felt like it was the right choice and gave us the space to build those connections ourselves. So
Yeah, because I
So,
felt like during the day we've been sitting around and like listening and learning a lot. So I felt
yeah.
like that time was perfect for us to basically share what we learned with other people and like expand on that and continue the conversation.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was a good balance in the end, and obviously that's really important. Great. So, wrapping up in a moment, how would you describe your overall experience of the summit to your peers in the industry? What's your overall impression?
I was thinking about this. I really do think it was a best in class event. You guys were able to really create a 360 environment with the best brands, voices, vendors, agency partners, of course, in the industry. So I think being able to really tackle it from all sides and give that breadth of experience and perspective was super valuable. And again, just the caliber of brands that were there was really impressive. So I was really grateful to be a part of it, and it was super valuable.
Yeah, to echo that, really. I feel like it was just like one word I was used to describe it would be like collaboration. There was just so much collaboration with the agencies, with the networks, with the talent, with the brands. There was just so much mingling. I loved how exclusive and small and intimate it was, where there was enough of each section of enough brands. There were good enough amount of agency people, and it was great to be able to talk to each individual segment and being able to utilize that and being able to again just really network and just learn from each other in an open environment is just super valuable. And it was honestly, and you couldn't think of a better place to have it all at. The venue was beautiful and amazing. I didn't want to leave. It was a very sad day on Friday, and the weather was perfect, but it was just like the best of everything that you can really ask for.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And on the sort of networking and sort of learning side, I heard somebody say something like it was really refreshing to have people sort of be very candid or sort of have a lot of humility in the conversations that they were bringing to the table. Like people were not kind of bringing that attitude of like, hey, I got all the answers. Like people were kind of bringing that attitude of, I'm not sure I do have all the answers. And, here's sort of a very authentic and I think therefore more helpful sort of perspective on, what they're dealing with or what they may be able to learn. And I think that's actually somewhat reflective of the general culture at Oxford Road. And I think it's one of the things that we do really well, but it seems to have transferred itself nicely to the event. And I feel, there was and perhaps it's just a reflection of our wonderful clients anyway. But I felt like a very sort of authentic and sort of valuable learning experience.
Just hearing all these words it feels really good because the team
Yeah.
from Haley, Bianca, Ruby, Sierra, Olivia, myself, Bart, like the whole team,
A lot of
everyone who built
work.
the sessions, everyone who put work into this it's just very validating to hear all that. But also,
Yeah.
it's great to see it all come together. This was the first year we also had sponsors come on board in a meaningful way, and I think we struck a really good balance there where everyone was additive and actually people learned a lot from our partners who were there. We had the most attendees we've had in our last 3 years. So this was also a great benchmark to have. And I think the content we struck a really good mix with. So, as Giles said, if you haven't gotten your surveys in and you're listening, please send them in because we do use that to help build our content for next year.
It's really important.
Right. Or other events that we might look to do throughout the year. So I think it's safe to say we'll be back somewhere, maybe there for year 4. But yeah, the venue was definitely beautiful. And I think the intimacy is something that really stands out versus other conferences where you go and we weren't in a massive auditorium. We were in 24 meeting rooms to choose from or anything like that. This was very, very structured, intimate, and it sounds like a valuable experience that everyone had. So we're happy to see it all come together.
And thank you guys for putting this all together. You guys did an amazing job.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
could tell there was a lot of work behind the scenes because everything was seamless on the front end. So
Yeah, our marketing team does a great job with that.
Yep, and they deserve another shout out. So thank you,
Yes.
guys. I'm going to ask one final question here because I think it's a great one of each of you. Perhaps following on from what you may have learned in the summit, or it could just be something general. But for our listeners out there, if you could give one piece of advice to brands investing in audio today, what would it be?
I think patience is, you really just got to be patient. You're not gonna see value after one day like you would on a digital channel. This is very much offline. You really need to just slowly grow and just wait. You'll see the growth. It'll happen. You just got to give it time.
I agree very much on the patience front and testing a lot. I think sometimes there's just different levers to pull on optimizing the script or the partners or different audio channels you're using. And it takes time and just testing again to figure out what is the right mix for your brand. And so it's definitely not going to be as like quick results, but it's something that can really revolutionize your media plan if you give it the chance. So
You guys hit it on the head. I actually was talking to a publication on the way down there for one of our clients who was looking for a quote of how we help their podcast business grow. And I made the comment that audio is hard. And they paused to stop on that. And I was like, dive in a little bit. And I said, look, buying audio is easy if you just want to check the box of buying audio. You can get that done from a variety of places. But if you want to do it in a meaningful way and tie it back to performance and optimize and make sure that your brand is reflected in the right tone and voice and alignment with all these different creators that are out there or audience segments, you got to do it right. And we feel that we've built this event, the CAO Summit, to help all brand marketers interested in audio to up their game and level up how they are approaching the business. So audio is still hard, but we're hoping to make it a little bit easier.
Very good. Thank you guys so much for sharing those thoughts and for all of your input. It's really great to hear from you. If you're listening or watching and want to join us next year at our 2026 CAO Summit, email us at info@chiefaudioofficer.com for more information. And in closing, we want to thank our wonderful sponsors and partners of the CAO Summit, including Libsyn, The Daily Wire, The Trade Desk, SiriusXM Media, AudioChuck, All City Network, Spotify, Claritas, Podscribe, Fairing, and Magellan AI, and the many others who made this event possible with their contributions. Thank you, Aaliyah and Megan, for joining us at the 2025 Chief Audio Officer Summit and for joining us on the Media Roundtable. For anyone who is unable to attend the summit, we will be releasing video recordings of the panels in the coming months, so please stay tuned. This podcast is brought to you by Oxford Road, where we want you to succeed in audio and to use influence for good. As members of the marketing community, we have the power to advance voices that don't just entertain, but edify, to build bridges across differences and preserve fair-minded discussion around the most important topics of our age. If you're a marketer looking to align your brand values with extraordinary business outcomes, reach out to our agency, Oxford Road, by visiting oxfordroad.com and subscribing to our weekly newsletter, The Influence. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any feedback or suggestions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@mediaroundtable.com. And finally, I feel obliged to offer a plug for Ad Infinitum, which is hosted by our VP of Creative Services, Stu Redwine, and is the only podcast focused on making effective audio creative assets. And I'm not just plugging that because the most recent episode was about English voices and talent and planning. and did feature yours truly and another notable English presence from the Oxford Road Agency, but that was a standout episode. But the other episodes are also excellent, so please tune in to Ad Infinitum. Thank you so much again to our guests and to Haley, Ruby, Bianca, not just for this podcast, but for the wonderful event that you guys put on and your team, and also to Kyle, Prince, Everett, Neil, and the team at Podcast One. As always, influence responsibly.